My children planned to put me in a nursing home, so I pretended to have dementia. But they weren't ready for what I discovered. I never thought I'd have to pretend to lose my mind to find out if my children loved me. The revelation came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was bringing tea into the living room when I heard their hushed voices from around the corner. I stopped, balancing the tray carefully as fragments of their conversation drifted toward me. "Mom's getting older. We need to start looking at options." The Cedar Grove place seemed nice. They have activities and full-time staff. She'd hate it, but she can't keep living alone in this big house. What if she falls again? We could sell the house, use the money to pay for it. She doesn't need all this space anyway. The teacups clinked softly as my hands began to tremble. I stood frozen, listening to my children, the ones I had devoted my entire life to, plotting to strip away my independence, my home, everything that mattered to me. I'm only 68. Yes, I had a minor fall 3 months ago, a twisted ankle while gardening. But they were talking about me as if I were already decrepit, incapable, as if my life were already over, just waiting to be tidied away. That night, lying awake in bed, my mind raced with a mixture of hurt and indignation. I'd raised them alone after their father died 20 years ago. I'd worked 2 jobs to put them through college. I'd never asked them for anything. By morning, I had made my decision. If they thought I was declining, I would show them what decline really looked like. I would give them exactly what they seemed to want, a mother who needed care, and see how they handled it. It wasn't mature, perhaps, but the pain of their betrayal overrode my better judgment. I began with small things: misplacing my keys, forgetting to return phone calls, wearing mismatched clothes when they visited. I noticed their exchanged glances, the gentle corrections, the increased frequency of their visits. My son Thomas started calling every morning to check in. My daughter started organizing my medications into daily pill containers, though I'd managed them perfectly well for years. At first, their concern felt validating. They did care, but I needed to know how far that care extended. I escalated. I left the stove on, deliberately, carefully, when I knew someone would be coming by soon. I forgot important appointments. I called Thomas by his father's name, watching the alarm spread across his face. I left taps running. I told the same stories repeatedly, with subtle changes each time. The weekly family dinners I'd always hosted became tense affairs. My daughter-in-law whispered with Thomas in the kitchen. My daughter brought pamphlets that she quickly tucked away when I entered the room. I pretended not to notice, all while my heart cracked a little more. 3 weeks into my charade, I wandered off from the grocery store. I simply walked 2 blocks to the park and sat reading for an hour, my phone turned off. When I returned home, police cars were parked outside, and my children were frantic. "Mom, where were you?" My daughter's voice cracked as she pulled me into a fierce hug. I affected confusion, claimed I'd gotten lost, couldn't remember how to get home. The fear in their eyes was real, and for a moment I faltered. This wasn't just about testing them, I was hurting them. But then I overheard Thomas on the phone later saying they needed to speed up the timeline. My resolve hardened again. The next day they brought a doctor to the house. He asked me gentle questions, tested my cognitive function, while my children watched anxiously. I performed poorly enough to concern, not badly enough to suggest immediate crisis. I saw the charts, heard the whispered words. Early signs consistent with dementia. Further testing. Monitoring required. I almost broke then, almost told them the truth. But I needed to see it through. A week later, they invited me to lunch at a new restaurant. The building looked suspiciously like the assisted living facility they'd been discussing. A tour was casually suggested after our meal. The director greeted us warmly, as if coincidentally running into old friends rather than conducting a prearranged meeting. I shuffled through bright corridors, past community rooms where elderly residents sat in circles, engaged in supervised crafts. Everything smelled of artificial flowers and cleaning products. Staff members smiled too broadly, spoke too loudly. I nodded politely while something inside me withered. Later that night, alone in my bedroom, in my house, I wept. The game had gone too far, revealed too much. I had wanted them to fight for me, to insist I stay in my home, to offer support that preserved my dignity. Instead, they had efficiently sorted out my future. A future without the garden I'd tended for 30 years. Without my neighbors. Without privacy or autonomy. The next morning I made my favorite breakfast, poached eggs on toast with extra pepper, and considered my options. I could continue the charade, eventually moving into Cedar Grove, living out my days in a sterile room while my house was sold from under me. I could confess the deception, possibly damaging my relationship with my children beyond repair. Or I could find another way. I called my sister in Arizona, the one person who might understand. Our conversation was brief but decisive. When we hung up, I knew what I needed to do. I spent the day cleaning my house, organizing my papers, bringing photo albums down from the attic. When Thomas arrived for his evening check-in, I had tea ready. "We need to talk," I said, pouring him a cup. He settled cautiously onto the sofa, watching me for signs of confusion. I had applied makeup carefully today, styled my hair, chosen a favorite outfit. I looked like myself again. Rather than launching into accusations, I began by asking questions. How had they imagined my care would work? What had they discussed among themselves? Was there a timeline? A budget? Had they considered alternatives to the facility? Thomas, caught off guard by my lucidity, answered hesitantly at first, then more openly. Yes, they had a plan. Yes, they were worried. No, they hadn't seriously considered in-home care. The house was too large, too isolated, too much for me to maintain. I listened, really listened, realizing that beneath their scheming was genuine concern, however misguided. They were afraid of losing me, afraid of me suffering alone, afraid of making the wrong decisions in a crisis. When he finished speaking, I took a deep breath and told him a modified truth. That I'd been having good days and bad days. That today was a good day, clear-headed enough to have this conversation. I told him I understood their concerns but couldn't accept their solution. I outlined my own plan. I would move, but not to Cedar Grove. I would sell the house. They were right about it being too large. But I would move in with my sister in Arizona, where we would share expenses and look after each other. I would get the medical testing they wanted, follow doctors' recommendations, but I would not be shipped away to live among strangers while I still had choices. Thomas's relief was palpable. They hadn't wanted to be cruel, he explained. They'd been terrified of waiting too long, of something terrible happening because they had hesitated. Over the next few days, I had similar conversations with my daughter. There were tears, negotiations, compromises. I never revealed my deception. What purpose would it serve now? Instead, I focused on rebuilding trust, on establishing boundaries, on creating a new framework for our relationship as I aged. 3 months later, I moved to Arizona. My house sold quickly. The furniture divided between my children and Charity. I set up a spare bedroom in my sister's ranch-style home, planted desert-friendly flowers, joined a local arts center. My children call regularly. They visit every few months. Our conversations have a new honesty to them. I've had the medical tests, all clear, though I'm monitored regularly. Sometimes I wonder if they suspect what I did, if they've pieced together the sudden onset and equally sudden stabilization of my symptoms. If they have, they've chosen not to confront me about it. I still feel twinges of guilt about the fear I caused them, but I don't regret the larger outcome. My dementia forced us all to face the reality of my aging before crisis hit. to have the difficult conversations while I could still advocate for myself. Last week, my daughter asked if I'd considered what I wanted when the time comes that I truly need assistance. Instead of deflecting, I answered her honestly. We made plans, real ones, together, with my input valued. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. Sometimes it takes a shocking revelation to rebuild what's broken. My deception had been a desperate act, born of hurt and fear. But from it came a new understanding between us, one based on respect rather than assumption, on collaboration rather than control. I never thought I'd have to pretend to lose my mind to find out if my children loved me. Turns out, they did. They just needed to learn how to show it the right way. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more family drama stories that explore the complex relationships between parents and their adult children. Your support helps us continue sharing these thought-provoking tales about love, loyalty, and the complicated dynamics of family life.